So we just talked about how you define a labware like a microplate in the software. Now what I want to show you is how you would define a slightly more complex piece of labware in the software. I'm going to take this chamber slide as an example. As you can see, a microplate has a very regular pattern of wells on the surface. On the other hand, if you use a chamber slide on the instruments, you're going to put it in a slide adapter, like I'm showing you right here. You could put another one of those on that slide adapter, and what happens is when you have two slides like this, you lose that regular pattern that you have on the microplate. And this is where the concept of labware in the software interface comes in. That's why here you have two buttons. One is add plate that you would use for something that has a very regular pattern, something like a chamber slide that is installed in a slide holder and where you can mount two of those, you would call labware. So I'm going to select this function in the software here. You have two options here, and the one I always use and I recommend you use as well is the second one, because it makes things much easier. Instead of having to define everything from scratch, what you do here is you select a template. And in that case, I'm going to use the slide holder as my template. If you have another piece of labware, you should select whatever is the closest in the list to your labware. Once I select my slide holder in the list here, slide holder, as you can see, the software makes a copy of that slide holder and defines by default two pieces of labware, 1 and 2, and the default is a 2x3 matrix. I'm going to change this right away because, as you can see on this slide, on this chamber slide here, I actually have a 2x5 pattern. So my number of rows is still 2, my number of columns is 5, and if you look at the illustration right under the numbers here, it will update to 2x5. Now, it is not easy to align exactly this illustration to the actual plate, and so there is a very useful tool in the software that actually allows you to take a picture. As you can see here, I have a load picture button. Before I do that, let me explain to you how you should take your picture. You want to take your labware, here my chamber slide, installed in its adapter, put it on a flat surface, take any mobile device, and then what you want to do is that you take your picture while your phone or your device is exactly at the vertical of your labware. You do not want to take your picture at any kind of angle like what you see here. That would not work well for the definition. So make sure you're right above your labware in its adapter. One easy way to check that is to make sure that the sides of your adapter are well aligned and parallel to the side of your display on your phone. Once you're done with this step, you're ready to import this picture in Gen5. And this is what I'm going to show you now. I am going to click the Load Labware Picture, go to my desktop where I know I have my pictures, select the right file type, and I have this one, chamber slide picture, OK. The software is going to give me instructions basically to crop the image. Here it's asking me to click on the upper left corner of the adapter, and then it's telling me to click on the upper right corner of the adapter. Now, as you can see, the image has been cropped, and all I need to do now is align the outlines to the wells on the image. I'm going to adjust my length a little bit here. Then I'm going to adjust the size of the wells. As you can see, they are too small. You have this number here that says 3700. I'm going to set this to 10,000. And now, as you can see, my drawing has been updated. And now I'm going to align all of these wells to the picture below. So I can adjust the size of this object here, adjust it down a little, and adjust these parameters basically until you're happy with the alignment between your between the image and the actual drawing that's overlaid on top of it. This looks pretty good now. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Maybe move this out a little bit. I see some overlap between my wells here, so I'm going to reduce this number here to 9,000. That looks better. Now that this is done, all that's left to do is to adjust your imaging parameters that you access through that button here, exactly like what we did for the microplate. I am not going to go through that process again because the process is exactly the same. You can look at the video for the 96 well plate and see how the bottom elevation parameter is adjusted, as well as bottom thickness if you want to do high magnification imaging, which on our systems means 20x and above. Once you're done with this, you can name the labware. Don't forget to use your own name in the name of your labware. This way, people will know not to touch this definition, and that will prevent imaging issues down the road. So I'm calling this Lavier chamber slide. I select OK. I am back to my list. As you know, I can sort this whole list by favorites. And if I go to the top, I will find all of my favorites, including my new chamber slide. And as you can see here, I have a little checkbox that tells me that this was defined as a labware.